we'll open up and questions to the audience. So I mean, we all family here for tonight. So if you have a question, we will certainly recognize you and please answer it. And do please keep it in the form of a question. I know some people like to make pontifications, but we would love if you can continue to keep it with the question. That being said, I'm going to start the questions with Mr. Dom Davis over here on the right side. I know you didn't just come from a whole day of fomenting social change. So Dom, I want to ask you, people often talk about the impacts of displacement and gentrification on the Black community, obviously in Seattle, specifically South Seattle, South King County. You work primarily in South King County and South Seattle. You deal with a lot of power brokers. On any given day, you're in Mayor Jenny Durkin's office, the King County Executive Dow Constantine's office, the Mayor of Renton's office. So for you, what has this displacement and gentrification meant in terms of political power and engagement within the Black community?
That's a good question. First of all, I feel like as you're asking that question, I started just reformulating the question to adapt it to what I'm seeing on a daily basis. So when you say there's a political, there's a social, and there's a legal aspect to just about everything, right? And so when we are being displaced, it just shows how much the system doesn't care about Black and brown bodies and doesn't have any kind of empathy or sympathy for the trauma that we've been through for so many years already. And so that they add this gentrification adds on to what we've already been going through for the last 400 years, right? And so when we are just being shunned aside, pushed out constantly, right in our face, our communities are being trampled upon and knocked down and then rebuilt up with new structures. Our communities don't look the same no more. Our kids get pushed out to South King County and then come back home to where they've been pushed out of, and it looks different. It doesn't have the same opportunities or the same feel up for it, so they come back into a foreign territory. So they've been pushed into foreign territories, and they come back home into foreign territory, right? So now you feel like you're misplaced subconsciously, but you feel like even though you're on the block that you and your hood been claiming, you still don't feel like you belong there anymore. So now we have a bunch of young people just out wandering and going up and down the streets and just don't belong nowhere. The community centers don't look the same no more. The schools don't look the same no more. The interaction doesn't look the same. You got a PCC now on the block. You got the store. You got, what I'm saying, all these different restaurants. So when you even drive down the street at night, subconsciously you feel like I don't belong here anymore. So that subconscious feeling of not belonging makes you more attracted to tie into the homies and to tie more into what we're doing in the street. And we even click even harder together because this is the only thing that makes me feel like I belong somewhere. You understand? So now we don't really talk about the subconsciousness of gentrification. We talk about the surface of gentrification, the economic damage of gentrification, right? And we talk about the taxes, like the property tax, all that's being pushed out. But no, let's talk about the subconscious, the subliminal message that comes along with that. Because believe me, the people that are doing the gentrifying know there's a subliminal message behind it. Know there's a subconscious layer to it. And know that as people navigate their day to day through it, there's that layer that we have not tapped into because we're so busy operating out of survival mode, all we can do is see the surface. So we don't have time to really tap into the psyche of what we're really feeling and how we're really, you know what I'm saying? So that's how I feel about the whole gentrification piece. It's perpetuating our young people to fall deeper into the criminal justice system, and they don't even realize it.
Anybody else?
Unspoken plan.
Oh, sorry. Anybody else want to add to what Dom said? Okay. All right.
Now look at this. Okay. This is for Kelly and any others who'd like to chime in. With our community suffering from displacement and gentrification, A lack of central hubs to organize. With this, does that now put on churches, community centers, businesses in our community to re-emerge as spaces for our community to congregate civically?
Yes. So
elaborate.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be trite. It just truly is yes. So for folks who don't know, Plymouth Church is 6th Avenue downtown between the Crown and the Hilton. Used to be next to Gucci and Louis Vuitton. So when I was hired to be lead pastor, you can imagine that was an amazing and interesting process. We'll leave that there. But one of the things that I discovered is that Plymouth was not seen in any way to be involved with the community. So people, when they saw me in place, they sort of quietly and sneakily came to me to see if they could use the building. So it was like, do you think we could have a rally here? Or do you think we can? I was like, sure. And so over time, Plymouth, and I've been there 5 years, which is short in the life. We're celebrating 150 years now. But one of the things I know is that if the church is not involved in the community, we have no right to exist. What else are we peddling? Who needs heaven if you're living in hell? And so for me, I can't preach and teach and think about biblical when we're not willing to understand that people are being impacted by policies that are literally trying to kill them. And so for me, gentrification is not just displacement. It's not just folks coming back like zombies looking for their stoops. It is what you're saying. It's the psychological and intentional neo-colonialism where we go in and say, this is savagery, and so we're going to clean it up and make it look civil and clean. And for me, I am a pastor of a dominant culture church, which means that 90% of my church is white. So my role is to come to my church and say, how are we going to participate in undoing and dismantling white supremacy? And not couching it in hatred or discrimination. No, I say the words, white supremacy. How is it that we are on Duwamish land and our building is worth over $40 million and we have an endowment of $25 million? What the hell are we here for? Not for our own selves, but to do something to uplift. And so who knows how much longer I'll be there, right? Because I talk like this to But in the meantime, I'm doing my part to say, it is not enough for you to have a Black Lives Matter banner on the top of the building. And when someone comes in, a black man comes in and says, I want to join the movement, we have to say this, we're not doing anything. And I told them, I am not your Obama. You hiring me does not mean you did anything. So we have to, okay? Because you ain't paying me enough to be that. So for me, we have to be the community center. We have to do more than just say, okay, here's water or, send you to a food bank or a clothing bank. We have to be the place where we can talk openly about what we are doing together, where we can take Mayor Durkin to task. She's not my favorite person and I'm not hers. And so we have to be able to speak truth to power and not be worried about reputation so that we can say the work that I did with Royal, going down the base of that juvenile detention center. That work is what I'm preaching on Sundays. That we need to abolish prisons, we need to abolish detention centers, and we have to do that work. So for me, that's what the church exists for. All the other mess can go. People can go online and hear a sermon. People can go online and learn what John 3:16 is about. But if we're not speaking the truth from the pulpit, I don't know why we're there.
I wanted to add a context to what you said, right? Because the other thing that happens with gentrification that we don't talk about is we lose the common civic public spaces.
That's exactly right.
Our culture, democracy, is a balance of private and public spaces. A democracy cannot actually thrive without public space, right? So this institutional library, when I talk about libraries these are the most democratic spaces we have in our society, right? I don't have to live in the zip code. I don't have to speak English. I don't have to have a certain ability. I don't have to have a job. I don't have to have money in my pocket, right? I don't have to be a certain age. And I can be in this space, in community, and in relation to other things and people and ideas. That is at the heart of a civic space. Gentrification very quickly creates barriers of privacy. And when you're talking right about folks don't recognize, it's because you cannot see your neighbor's doors anymore. The sign of gentrification for me in the Rainier Valley and what I see in Skyway, I know it's getting gentrified when I see fences going up. And those literal fences are also figurative and civic fences. It is a sign that I do not trust my neighbor enough to show them the passage to my door. That they could come and be offered something should they need it. I grew up in rural Missouri, very poor, right? The thing with poverty is you have proximity to community for survival, and every person's door was open to me, literally and figuratively. There was never a deep want for me, because all who had little were willing to give what they had. This city, this district, right? We're struggling with folks who have a lot and don't want to give anything to anybody else. So to me, that's a question of gentrification. How much are we willing to privatize the spaces that let us be open and have a democracy and help with community and relationship with each other? Apparently a lot, right? And 9/11, right? I can talk about all the things that have led to this moment, but that to me is the crisis of our culture in America, and this community is, are we gonna continue to have openness and space in community with each other or not? And gentrification is the core question of that on so many levels that you all have brought up, right? So that's the question to me, right? Are we taking care of people, and do they know that we're taking care of each other?
I just want to say I did not oversell this town. Now, I do want to move into sort of the direct political process, if you will. And so, Brianna, I want to ask you, there's always this adage, a common adage, that Black folks in any area of life have to work twice as hard to be considered half as good, and half as being charitable many times. But especially when it comes to politics and running for office and working within these sort of spheres of power, it's magnified by many orders of magnitude. Can you talk about, one, why that is, two, and two, how do we change that, or can we change it?
Yeah, for sure. So, politics and governance as established in our country is a white male institution. It is a white male land-owning institution. So, right, like that's where we started. So my renting brown female behind fundamentally hold power inside this institution, except for the fact that I decided that I do. And I'm happy to share that information with anyone that cares to hear it. One of the biggest problems I think that we face walking into this space is, particularly younger people today, is imposter syndrome. Like having to walk through the space of, do I belong here? Should I have a seat at the table? Am I smart enough? Am I good enough? Do I work hard enough? And I think that's where some of it comes from. We question ourselves so deeply that it makes it easy for other people to question us too. And it makes it easy for us to tear each other apart in that space as well. And so I don't have imposter syndrome. I'm 100% convinced that I should have the job that I have, or I should be the position that I should have the power that I hold. I might have an arrogance problem.
It's not
So I have a truth telling problem.
Right, but so is everybody else that I work with, so we're all on the same page there. And I think, right now I work for a council that is majority female, that is majority people of color, and all of the new staffers that we have coming in, you can see their anxieties, and I'm just like, no, you made it to the big show. You don't have to worry that this system as it used to be is here to beat you up, because we are your team now. There are more female staffers in there are younger female staffers, there are more people of color doing the work and pushing the levers and answering the phone and trying to get Dom, whatever it is Dom has asked for, as quickly as possible. And so changing how we are represented in that space, I think really changes how you psychically move through it. There's a lot of people that have come in expecting suits and white men and ties and this rigidity, And then like you come into our office and it's a dance party at 3 o'clock, and we are really trying to let the steam of the day go and be humans with each other while we make these policies to fight gentrification, to fight the incarceration of children, to create public spaces for community to regather. So I think just being willing to own the fact that I deserve my seat at the table, and I do it physically. I'll be I'll be the first one to sit at the table in the middle of it, prepared to have a discussion. Does that answer your question?
Quite well.
Can I just add to that? I'm so grateful that you answered that. Oftentimes, especially like I said, in the spaces that I'm landing in, they'll want to push me towards the head of the table. And have you noticed, I'm just telling you, one of the things you can do for equity is buy a round table for your board. Come on now. Just stop the rectangle. Anyway, they want to push me towards the head of the table. I always sit in the middle, on one of the sides. And what I had to say to somebody who was trying to check me is that no matter where I sit, it is the head of the table. And so that, I just want to say too, that it is impossible for oppressed people to be arrogant. Because we're coming, it's a positional thing. If you're coming from a place where you've been stomped on and there's a boot on your neck, when you stand up, that is not arrogance. And so I just want to say that because it is important, because often people will see through the lens of whiteness, and when you stand up straight and when you talk and command presence, they want to say, oh, look at her, she's so arrogant, look at him, he's arrogant. No, that is not arrogance. This is what it looks like to be free. This is what it looks like to finally be standing up. So I just want to lift you up and say thank you for saying that. And also, hey, this is where we're at.
Yeah.
All right.
I have one more tiny pivot, and then we can go Marcus, I promise. So we were talking about representation, particularly in Olympia, because Christine Reeves recently left to go pursue a position in Congress, and I was fit to be tied about the number of black women in Olympia. And someone had the audacity to tell me last night, well, that I should be excited because Kirsten's clearly going to win. Our numbers will get right back up to the 2. And mathematically, that is proportional representation based on population. Wow. And I was like, I'm trying to get representation based on oppression. Wow. So until the entire legislature is people of color, you can get out my face. That's my goal. So please don't use math to explain. Systemic racism.
We have a church here tonight.
I think there's a call in the White House right now. All right, for Kirsten, I'm so sorry. Taking the civil rights movement as an example, policy and political shifts have historically come about from both an outside and inside strategically, meaning social movements pushing for change and elects, then advancing policy to enact that change. But those approaches are sometimes painted as being in conflict, as opposed to complementary of each other. In your opinion, what's been the through line on how best to advance the interests of the black community? And what do you feel is the best strategy today, 2020?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
It's
a little juicy for you.
It's good. It's interesting. In thinking through running for the 37th district, the lens that I started with was the lens of governance, right? Because I always think if I'm applying for a job, I need to think about what the heck I'm going to do if I get it, right? When I get it, right? Like that's, like don't just start the application process. Right? Don't get married unless you want a marriage. Like figure that out. So in thinking through that, I always have a lens because I come from activism. I didn't know I came from activism, but it's very natural in hindsight that I did. I grew up, my father's black, my mother's white, in rural Missouri, very overt racism. Like the lovely, polite racism here is very shocking to folks from the South. We have very overt racism. We know when it's happening. And my mother was an anti-racist white woman. We didn't have those words when I was a kid, but that woman was an activist everywhere. She'd see injustice in the grocery store and be like, oh, and I'd be like, Mom. But what I was seeing, right, was activism in your daily life all the time. And my grandmother said similarly. I have that just example in my life. And what I realize, right, when I think of all the largest changes that have ever happened, civically, it came out of movement building, right? So the biggest influx of voters this country has ever seen was the passing of the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement, hands down. It literally almost doubled the size of the Democratic Party in 3 years, right? Because you had, like what Don was saying, hundreds of years of injustice that were righted instantly of people who were hungry to participate in democracy. The Voting Rights Act was not a voting movement fight, right? It was a civic integration fight. It was a race equity fight, right? It solved a huge problem that we had in how people could participate in our democracy, but that's not what that movement was about, right? That's not why folks were sending their baby kids on buses with no apps or telephones or nothing down to the South to sit at lunch counters to get their heads cracked in. Like, that's what folks were willing to do for that level of voice, right? So when I think of movement building, that's what I think about. That outside in is the way it's supposed to be. Folks in elected office are supposed to be of service of the people. The disappointment at seeing the pardoning, right, of the impeachment of our president is because those people are not representing the good of what we need as a country to thrive, not just survive, right? It's less about the rules of Robert's Rules of Order and stuff, which are all formal processes of governance. It's about, are you listening to people and what they need and giving it to them? Are their lives better at the end of the day or not? And that's an inside-out strategy all day. So when I think of governance, I'm always thinking, when we were in city council, I was there for 51 days.
Ooh, she was.
I concentrated on what we could change in 51 days
That's right.
and how to give everyone on the outside access to the inside curve. So I was talking to community organizing in the Central District and finding out the reason their request wasn't going through, they didn't know it. They had to have 50 requests was the magic number before that department responded to them. What an easy thing to solve once I understood the system. You need 50 emails in by tomorrow, and you'll have your interpreters, right? They didn't know the rules on purpose,
Right.
right? It was buried in a website somewhere, layers in, for folks for whom English isn't their first language, and only, right, like all the things. And once we knew, and why would I keep that secret? I told every activist I know that that's right. There ain't nobody not getting their public disclosure request done now. I told them who to call, what to say, how to fill out the form, and how long they should have it back. Like, that's the real process for me, to give folks those tools. That's the stuff, and that comes from movement. Every policy that's been positive in this state in the last decade, when you read it in the Seattle Times, came from initiatives. It came from people changing people's societies. The malice standard around policing, that did not happen through the legislature. We tried. They had to have an initiative of the people. And what a great state that we could do that, right? Same-sex marriage, all of it. You name it, it came from the people. And that's what makes me excited. Stand shoulder to shoulder with neighbors and solve things and make it laws that help everyone, whether they knew about it or not.
Oh my God.
All day I could do that. So good.
So beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I mean, it's hard to top that. But anybody want to add on to that inside-outside strategy? I mean, Michael Charles, you're quiet over there. You always talking about the dimensional chess.
Especially with
Come
people
on.
running for office. Be real about that.
No, of course. I mean, I know my question is coming later. But I'm just going to say it for myself too, just because I think it's so important. But the idea of like votes being taken for granted, and especially black votes being taken for granted, not only are they taken for granted, but they're actively discriminated against. It's purposeful, it's intentional to ensure that black voices are not a part of this process. You can turn on any news station today, CNN, anywhere, the first thing you hear is the only way we're going to win this presidency is if we appeal to the middle. If we appeal, and all that is code for white people. And it's not, there's no interest in getting black voices involved. There's no, like, you can see it from who people hire to work for them. You see it, who If you look at the staffs, you hear these stats where the Democratic Party itself in the Senate has 2 black staffers. I'm not talking about black women, black men, I'm talking 2 of the 26 people, period. There's 2 black staffers, and when you think that people don't have the intestinal fortitude to pass these laws that are going to help black people, you need to look straight at those people and ask, well, I understand why this happened. It's because your staff doesn't look black. You don't really care about black people. The way the system is set up is not to benefit black people. If you saw in Iowa what just happened the past few days ago, what you saw, you would see entire rooms of black people filled supporting Bernie Sanders. And you know what they did? They set up the rules to make sure that those black votes didn't matter as much. It's purposeful.
Yes.
You look back, you go back in time and you look into history and why the Electoral College exists the way it does today. It's because they don't want black people to be a part of the system and to make decisions. It is no deeper and no more complicated than that, and anybody who tells you anything different doesn't care about you. And it's the reality. And when you're in this system, I'm one of very few people that look like me that do this work. And I walk into most rooms and I'm the only one that looks like me and do this work, and I hear it time and time again that it doesn't matter what you think. We can't support these people. We don't need policies that are going to support them because they don't turn out. They don't care. They're going to vote for us no matter what. And the only reason why they say that is because they don't try. They don't care. They don't put in the time. You don't see them in our community. You don't see them talking to us. I mean, they talk to Dom because he's in the, what? Because you're in the paper, because you're on TV, because you're willing to speak up, because you don't have imposter syndrome. But it gives them an excuse to not talk to us, to avoid us. And the way that policy is built up, Brianna will tell you that they use now, and this is just as evil, the way now that they've erased us by using people of color as a term, and this term is purposeful to make other brown people's concerns and their histories are equally as oppressive and as important, when they don't understand that, no, but we've been in chains, we didn't choose to come here, we had no choice. And I don't think that there's any understanding that until we're centering black people in policy, that none of these policies are going to help everybody, because until we're serious about helping black people in government, that government is going to continue to fail people. It's not going to look like us. People that look like us aren't going to care. We're going to continue to disengage, and this is all part of a very cynical strategy to keep us oppressed and continue to press on us. I work my butt off to try to do what we can to get our communities to have representation, and I can tell you we face fierce opposition. That it is the goal of these people to keep us not only down, but keep that foot on our neck as long as possible. When you hear the youth jail coming in, it is exactly what we think it is. It isn't a plan to keep us oppressed. And this is the plan, and until we have our allies continue to not just stand up, but lift us up. So somebody was talking earlier about, we don't need leadership training, we need follower training. That's real. Is that we're tired of, I don't need you to self-select and tell me that you can help me, because no, you can't. I've given you opportunities for centuries at this point. And why should I believe that you're going to do this for me now? The reason why you see people moving leftward, why you see this more progressive movement starting to take hold, is because it's actually involving discussion centering black people. It's actually based on the idea of lifting people out of oppression. And what's radical today was John Brown's decision to get rid of, to go kill people on behalf of getting rid of slavery. But we need to continue to push revolutionary, radical ideas, because what's radical today will seem like such obvious ways of moving our forward into the future.
Eating children's school lunch used to be a radical idea,
and
which is wild, right?
And all these things, just taking care of people is a radical idea today. And until we move past that and realize we center black voices, then we're actually moving forward. All ships are rising. Then we can begin to say, okay, we're moving in the right direction as a country.
Go ahead, acting like you didn't have that.
Playing possum.
Right.
This point, I also think that there's this expectation of black people as superhuman superheroes.
Yeah.
They can jump, racism and oppression in a single bound. Don is exhausted in his spirit. I'm exhausted in my spirit.
That's
Kelly is
right.
exhausted in her
Absolutely.
spirit. So the amount of energy it takes to hold that seat at the table and hold that space until reinforcements come cannot be oversold. Like, we are tired. Someone send us a chicken. Like, really, make me upset. Help me out here. Call me out if I'm okay, because I'm not. Right? Like, what we have to do to not only get in the door, but stay in the door, stay true to our communities, stay committed and stay whole, just can't be oversold. So if you know a Black person who is holding that space and holding it down, please do something nice for them every day of the year.
But especially this month.
Especially
I went to the juvenile jail today. Walked around it and did a tour of it. We went down there today, and I went and you see the lobby and you see all and you look in. But when we went down to where the jail actually is, and we walked in and I looked in the cell. And I went and I sat on the bed. I kind of closed the door a little bit, and I just sat there and imagined myself being my 13-year-old self, or my 14-year-old self, and I'm sitting in this room. This is my cell where I'm going to spend most of my days at while I'm here. And then when I get transferred from here, I'm going to get transferred to another older jail that ain't me, with the older cell. But still sitting in that small box, in that small room, I was emotional. I started feeling myself getting a little emotional because I started thinking about what are we actually doing to our babies, right? So as I sit back and I think about the question and the whole civil rights movement and racism and all that stuff, and I start thinking, you said, what can we do in 2020? Is one of how you ended the question. And when I thought about what can we do in 2020, I think to myself, ain't gonna be no more damn marching for equal rights. Because I don't want to have equal rights in this racist institutional system that has been oppressing us for so long. I don't want to be equal in this racist system. I want to blow this system up and build a new system. And how do we do that, right? But we have to come together. And we can't worry so much about what rights they might give us or not give us, or how equal they want to let us be and how not equal we have to take it. We have to take it. We have to be willing to come together and bring that $1 trillion+ that we spend every year as consumers, and understand that we could be the 5th richest nation in the world if we held that in our hands and did something with it, and understand the power that we really possess. Screw trying to make them let our votes count. We take our votes. Screw trying to tell them that they need to relinquish some of their power. Let's take the power. I'm tired of us begging and tap dancing and side shuffling for these people to give us an opportunity.
Absolutely. Can I add something to the context of what you said? You want more than what's possible now. I talk about this around race a lot. What is not known, I think, to a lot of white people is that white supremacy is standing on y'all's necks too.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Straight up it is. And I'll give you a clear example. I do work in reproductive justice. When you look at birth outcomes in this country, what this country does is it compares the birth outcomes of white women to Black and Indigenous women. Because of how awful this healthcare system and society is to Black and Indigenous women, white women look pretty good compared to us in American context. Compare white women to any other developing country with birth outcomes, you are dying faster, and your babies are too, and your health outcomes are abysmal. When you no longer have us as your only litmus of comparison. This whole country is being drugged down by the original sins of genocide of Indigenous people and enslaving of Black people. The whole country. Folks from the South were not surprised in 2016 when Trump was elected. It was the most damn racist thing I ever experienced in my life. Because I saw what happened in this country after Obama was elected. We lost 1,600 seats at the state level. Every state that could fortify white supremacy did it on their local ballot the next election. Every governorship, State House, State Senate. You can draw a map and the whole thing's a sea of red. When you look at demographics of this country, it's like an empty donut. Most seats in the Senate are ruled by 10% of what's represented on the coastal states, because folks are just fleeing the whiteness. White folks too. If you're a white ally, you don't stay there either, right? But the power does. They still have the same number of Senate seats, and the Electoral College makes sure that that power gets leveraged to advantage of those states. What we saw in the caucus in Iowa, and the core question of why are we even doing this in Iowa? Why is that the first time I've ever heard that say question?
Yeah.
Nothing about our electoral system makes sense now through the lens we look at, because we now have a clarity of lens, because we're talking about things that are real now in a way we never did before. So I always talk about it's the promise of our democracy, to your point, that we should be investing in, because if we just think of this institution we have and just replace the players, that's not liberation.
No.
It is not liberation. We have to build a new system.
Yeah.
I don't want to blow this system up. I want to build a new system and give my people safe passage to it. And I know that's what you mean when you say that, right? Because I know that's what you're literally building, is community passageways. You're literally building a new container for those children so they don't have to sit in a cage. And that's why your work's so important, right? You're building a vision of the science fiction of our future that none of us could imagine. Because we've never had a world without children in cages. Never. In our whole existence. But you're making a way we can see that we could. And we can, because you're building it.
Thank you.
And just to tag on to what you had to say, Kirsten, that the Democratic Party is just as complicit
Yes,
in
they
all
are.
of this. I need to be
Yes,
very
they
clear
are.
about that red is just a different shade of white, is all I gotta say. So,
The Democrats and the Republicans?
yeah. I mean, and I say that as a Democrat, and I say that as somebody that is actively involved in the party, but that is just as insidious. You look at the leadership of our parties, you look
We
at
have
Chuck
work to do.
Schumer, you look at Nancy
have work to
Pelosi,
do.
those people have never, they don't exist in black spaces, they don't exist with people of color. They're rich white folks, just like everybody else that's in charge of that party.
We have work
And
to do.
until that party, and it also understands the work they have to do, we're gonna continue, we can't rely on them to
Right.
save us, is
Party
my
politics isn't
point.
the only solution.
Exactly.
Which is why we have to do the movement building work.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
necessary. It's necessary.
I think that part of the jail system and every system that is set up, you look at the slaves that came over on the slave ship. The jails are exact replicas of the slave ships. So there's not a difference there today. They said we give them a little bit more space to walk around in, they can go outside. That's no difference than what they did with the slaves. They felt justified by doing that because they said they are not human. They are less than a dog. And if you don't think that today they don't feel the same way, because look at our political system. We saw the other night the show. I won't say what kind of show it was, but we saw the show. We saw the show that was happening.
It was performative, that
It was
for
a
sure.
performance,
Yes.
even down to the shredding of the speech. And that was supposed to make everybody else that didn't look like them feel good. So you gotta remember how racism, what they do is say, now you're part of it because we are in this together. We are not in this together.
No.
Politics.
Yeah, and we have to be honest too, and I have to dance this all the time because part of my hiring was to make the folks in my church feel okay about who they were and what they participated in and sustained, and I'm honest on that. But one of the things I just want to say is I don't want to undo what Dominic said. I think he was right in saying there should be abolishment, and here's why, and dismantling. I think that we have too long absorbed this sort of gradualism, where it's sort of like, if we can just have people on the same page, if we can just sort of convince people that this is the way to do things, and then somehow there's going to be this groundswell of togetherness, right? And kumbaya moment, and then we're all going to go forward. But the thing that I need to say is that white people and whiteness is not equal.
That is true. That is true.
Loving me is not hating you, right? So we need to say that up front.
Which is why white people can be hurt by whiteness.
Exactly right. But the system we've got to hate. And the system we've got to demolish and get rid of. Because I remember years ago being in the band, and my band director said, if you want a new car, you better get rid of the old one, because you won't have room in the garage.
Oh.
Come on now. So if we want to put a new car in the garage, the old one has to go. And so this system has been what was built from the beginning, and we have tried to reform it since the very beginning. It is time to consider that it goes away so that we can put something in new. And I'm not trying to be religious here, but that's the whole point of Easter, right?
Oh, yes.
The whole point of Easter is not resuscitating the old body, but that what the person that comes out of that tomb is not recognized because it is a resurrected body. That is what America needs, to be resurrected and not resuscitated, because we have been blowing breath into that dead old body for too long, and the same people will continue to be on the bottom if we maintain that system.
That's why they say make America great again, resuscitate it, bring it back to life, bring back the old body.
That's exactly it.
I graduated in Columbus, Georgia. The last words from the mayor was, "The South shall rise again." At my graduation.
When I moved here, I grew up in rural Missouri.
That's right, I know you did.
And and they say, is it the South? I said the Mason-Dixie line ran smack dab. Right? So in your 5th grade civics class, you learned about the Missouri Compromise, right? That literally set the Dixie line in that state. And my whole life, it was called the War of Northern Aggression. My whole life. Led by teachers, and every field trip of my childhood was the Civil War. My husband grew up in rural Alaska, Puerto Rican kid in rural Alaska, and he keeps saying in the context of politics right now, I'm worried we're going to have a civil war. And what I always say to him is, baby, we've been in a cold civil war.
That's right.
And I say a cold civil war, right? And it's not so cold on some street corners also, right? Like we've been inactive.
Just go to Broadmoor.
Go anywhere, right? But the way it's been playing out, like in this moment, and I'm telling y'all, please spread the gospel on this. If you hear one person talk about apathetic voters, even just one, pause and correct them and say, I think what you said mispronounced is voter suppression.
Come on now.
Right? Because what you're talking about, right? For every apathetic voter who's undecided, I guarantee there's 150 voters who want to vote and can't. I guarantee it. They're changing the laws now. The reason we have to have laws on the books that tell you whether your hair's okay to be at school and
Come on, as it grows out of your head.
is because in the South, it used to be you had to identify your eye color. And white folks knew if you put blue and green, that was code for white, right? Whiteness, I describe as a fog. And that's why white people get lost in it. We all get lost in whiteness. Fog is insidious, right? It can reshape itself. It can show up in new ways. It's why we could have the civil rights movement and not have the promise that was given on the laws on the books, right? It's why we can have the 13th Amendment with a clause that says, but you can have slavery this way. Because what we need to do is reform the system of slavery into something new and powerful, right? Washington State loves to say we're progressive. We have the largest detention center in the country on the West Coast.
Come on.
The cages, you're talking about slave ships, we're literally seeing it on our cable news. Every detention center in this country is caging people and treating them like beasts instead of humans. Right now, not in pretend. This very second when we're in this room. And every day I wake up and me and my kids talk about it and ask what we're going to do today to help fix it. Like that's what has to be at the presence of mind all the time. And folks who say they're tired, like what you're saying, I said take a rest but hand the burden to someone else to hold it for you. Do not lay it down. Please do not. Right?
But
that's
also
my
take care of
call at the
yourself.
moment. But take care of yourself. Hand it to someone and take care of yourself. But don't lay it down. And what we're doing is burning ourselves out till people can't hold it anymore. And that has to stop. And that will stop when white folks do their work too. The only people who are going to undo whiteness are white folks in solidarity with those of us most impacted, right? Because you're also impacted. That's why this thing of separating whiteness from white people is so important. And I've lived with white people who do it actively all the time. It's disrupting the moment when your uncle says something backwards. It's really pausing and saying it's not okay and meaning it, right? It's teaching your kids those moments, but it's also recognizing it in our systems and making laws and enforcing them and making sure folks know about it and change them. So that's the thing, this thing of apathy versus suppression, like recognize what's actually happening with the system and change the system.
So then, Christian, that actually brings us to the final question we'll have before we turn it over to the audience. And I'm sorry that we got to do the obligatory MLK quote for MLK. For Black History.
Never apologize for an MLK.
But it's the quote of MLK. He says that the destiny of the Black community cannot be untied from the destiny of the white community or any other community. And you all have alluded to allyship and accomplishment in terms of what that looks like. So what does that actually look like in policy? And whether it's at the city level, the county level, right here, smack dab in Skyway, what does the true political allyship look like between the white folks, Black folks, and the rest of our community?
You want us to go down the line and answer that?
Yeah, please.
You be careful with my words.
Don't be careful.
Allyship. I really feel like I was in a meeting the other day in a room full of the power players or whatever you want to call them, elected officials or whatever. And I said that you need to get out our way. You need to get behind us. You need to give us the resources that already belong to us. Because we're not asking for nothing from you. We want back what was taken. And then you need to be willing to give up the power that you have in each of your individual institutions and let us step into some power positions to lead this charge if you're really serious about it. And you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, totally uncomfortable, where you feel like you might be losing something uncomfortable. And if you're not willing to do that, we're here wasting our time having this conversation. And we're going to be back here again in a few more years trying to have this conversation again with some other Black people that maybe won't be me.
Exactly.
And so I'm saying that allyship looks like that to me. It looks like the people that have experienced the oppression should be leading it to get out of the oppression because we're the experts at it. Nobody else can ally us out of it and stand side by side with us to get out of it. Now, there's a role for everybody to play. So don't get me wrong. I'm not excluding anybody because the bigger the numbers, the more the allies, the more voices that are yelling, the more power we got, right? But at the end of the day, it needs to be led by the people that are affected by it most. That's when we see when an ally is willing to step behind you and say, I got your back. I'm here with you, but you go ahead and lead it. I got you. And we're not going to water down this Black movement with the LGBTQ or the Latino X or the, all the other, because we need to also focus on this and this and that. That happens too much. Actually, it just happened in that meeting I was just telling you about. Somebody slid a letter quietly to the person that was facilitating the meeting. The person called me later on and said, bro, do you know what this judge just handed me? And said, well, I see you got Dominique here, but where's the representation of the Latino X population? We wasn't here to talk about them. So every time you talk Black, somebody wants to water that down. Think about it. So now what I'm saying is, in order for an ally to really truly be an ally, and we're being unapologetically Black with an unapologetically Black agenda, get behind us and let us lead. Support us from the back. That's what I think an ally looks like.
Come on down the line.
Everything that Tom said, but I'm just going to take it one step further. And for me, it's the idea of you got to put in this capitalist society we live in, you have to put your money where your mouth is. And it's until I start seeing resources shifted, until you start seeing money put in, until you see people being willing to come up off their own cash and start helping folks. And I don't mean by donating through philanthropy, I mean give it to the experts, give it to the people that spend all day working on these issues. Don't tell me that, you go to AT&T and they're gonna be like, well, what's a great thing we should fund this year, and how? You said fund the government. Pay taxes, so that you can come up off your money. Yeah. And so I mean, that's it to me, is that until capitalism goes away, you got to put your money where your mouth is.
I mean, honestly, I just want white people to be quiet. I do. I'm so tired of hearing from y'all. I just don't want to hear about that one time that you thought that maybe you had an experience that was kind of like an experience that I had, and I had to listen to that story for 6 minutes. I don't get my 6 minutes back. So, and now it's about you. And that's really just, it's very frustrating. So for me, allyship is just like, my favorite thing to hear from white people is what Brianna said. The end. That's like my topic.
That's what Brianna's favorite 4 words. What
Brianna said.
I think for me, it really comes down to believe black people and take action in the way that they say they need you to take action. It's really that simple. It really is. I often think of that New York magazine, right, that all we're asking for you to do is stop killing us, right? Like the simplest statement about what Black Lives Matter is about, that's all we're asking. It's a simple request, right? Please stop killing us. It's not enough to believe and just believe it. You have to take action. Particularly in this region. Washington State was founded as a space for white people. It was. It's woven into our history in every facet of our governance. Right, the northern migration, right? Redlining made sure folks knew where they could and couldn't be. Like it's woven everywhere. And the destiny of what we have now as a system is wrapped up in that. And we do have to undo it. And to really start to take action, if you are someone who wants to move out of pre-contemplation into action, you cannot be wrapped up in shame and blame cycles. It's not going to get you anywhere. You have to lean in with curiosity and compassion. You have to ask the question, what should I do? And you have to have enough compassion for yourself and others to say, I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to say sorry when I do it, because you're going to make mistakes, right? And in reverse, we on the receiving end I also have to have grace and compassion and go, right? Most of us have been segregated from each other. We don't know how to relate to each other in this work. If we're building something new we've never seen before. I don't know what a future without prisons is, but I'm optimistic we're going to get there, and then I'm going to be next to folks like this to help us figure it out. So yeah, believe us, take action. Don't do shame and blame. Curiosity and compassion with yourself and others. Show up.
It's hard to be last because you want to take the tail of everybody, but here's what I'll say. The first thing is that I believe in moral fusion. So what I mean by that, that's the language of Reverend Dr. William Barber, but also it's my language in that somehow blackness is not a single issue. Blackness is the thing that cuts across ableism, it cuts across queer identity, it cuts across all of that. But we have to start with blackness. And so I just want to say that for the record. But what I know is that one way to be an accomplice is to not believe in an inertia. You don't have to be walking toward a cliff and fall off. You can walk toward it and say, this is something I should not be approaching, and go another way. My thing is that we should not say anymore, for those in this room and those who will be looking at this video, we should not say anymore the slaves that came on the slave ships. They were Africans who were abducted and put on by enslavers. And that twisting, even they didn't even have to be kings and queens. They could have been people who were farmers. They could even be people who did bad things. But my thing is they didn't have to be enslaved. And so somehow, if you're talking about undoing that Superman model, we're gonna have to say, even if a criminal, because I go to Monroe every 2 weeks, I don't even know what the people I visited did. It doesn't matter. I'm going to see men who have not had visitors, some as much as 25 or 30 years. They're in the special offenders unit. They think that which means they have a mental health diagnosis. Their families have cut them off completely. I have black men saying to me, did what I say, was it okay? I haven't had a visitor in so long. I don't know if I know how to be social. We have to, if we are able to go back to the start, to say that those were not slaves on the slave ships, then maybe we won't be calling the men who were involved in what happened at 3rd and Pine thugs and criminals, and they had been through the justice system 40 or 60 times, so I blame the judge for letting those animals loose. I had lunch with somebody telling me this. And I was like, you know what, I can't even, I mean, it's hard for me to be silenced. But if we don't watch 13th by Ava DuVernay, I don't know how we can have the conversations. We have to be able to break open what we think is right and resist inertia and humanize people. Because unless we do that, what we're doing together will never move forward.
I know we gotta let but I just gotta say this real quick. I'm not gonna be long, I promise. These two sitting right here, there's 46 years of prison time between these two sitting right here. It's my sister. I call him my brother. That's my real sister, but I call him my brother. Right? We haven't laid eyes on each other in 26 years till 2 weeks ago. Because I don't visit people in prison. I mean, like, well, back then, because I lived a life that, you know, and I was in the streets doing my thing, and I thought going to a prison to visit people was bad luck, because I'm gonna end up in there eventually. So I thought that was bad luck, and I told him when everything happened, I said, bro, I'm not coming to see you. I'm gonna let you know that now. I'll support you if you want me to even bail you out. It was a lot of money. You want me to buy this attorney? What you want me to do? I'll do whatever you need me to do, but I'm not coming to visit you. And if I go, I don't want you to come see me. But I'm saying this for a reason. We are locking up brilliance. Because as soon as they got out, I hired both of them.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And paying them a living wage, you know. And so I'm saying, and I got some more brothers coming out. I'm hiring. I got some more. And so I'm hiring people because they're the experts. Right? This is what this prison industrial complex has done to our people. We're 3 generations in now of the 3 strikes you're out, crack epidemic. You see what I'm saying? The mandatories and minimums and all. We're 3 generations into that. We've been stripped of our families, our communities. Everything has just been ripped from us. If we had these people in our communities, we wouldn't be in this position right now. You see what I'm saying? So as we have these conversations, we gotta look at what's been done to us, not back just slavery time. It's just as bad. It's just So anyway, I just wanted to say that I mean, I got brilliance amongst me. You know what I mean? Brilliance.
So I'd like to open it up to the audience. I'm sure you may have some questions and some comments.
I just want to say thank you for all of you guys for speaking truth and not sharing your experiences. What can we do to support your guys' cause and be more involved with you guys?
You can vote for Kirsten.
I know So if folks want to learn more about what we're building, we're going to be doing community vision sessions. I was talking through today, so often the South End communities are ignored. And we're told, right, the further south we go, the further we're from the solution. So we're starting our work from the furthest southern point north. So we're going to start our work with Skyway in Renton for community vision sessions. So please plug in there. You can sign up and hear about those at electkht.org. The first one is going to be on February 15th. We're having our launch party and our first community conversation there. It's going to be at the Central Area Senior Center. We're very excited to be with our elders there celebrating. That space, which has been a community-owned space, is going to be moving back to a community-owned space. It's a space where our elders get to stay in place in our community, which are rare things nowadays. So that's huge. And for me, it's I don't care what your cause is that you want to take action on, but figure out what it is. For me, I've been saying Foresight 2020. I'm figuring out this is a year of answers. Zora Heeson said
There are years of questions, years of answers. For me, 2020 is a year of answers. So find the thing that's your passion that you want to groom and love and help bloom and blossom over the next decade, and dedicate your whole heart and spirit to it, and make a plan for the care you need to steward it for that long. And I don't care what it is. There's so many things that need your loving hands and your time.
Any other questions? Yes, gentlemen.
I don't know that Kelly actually.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I missed you too.
Well, I was just gonna say, one of the pieces that I think on this self-care piece that it's really, that's a misnomer. There's not self-care. We have to build community so that we're caring for one another.
Yes.
We see people falling over, falling down, canes. I mean, my mentor, 63 years old, dead from cancer, the woman who was my dissertation advisor. I mean, that she needs to be here. People needed to hear from her. So what we need is for all of us to be watchful, to see who's working themselves to the bone, who's ground down to the bone. When I pulled in here, my phone said, bloop. Somebody said Olympus Spa in Linwood, gift certificate for you, Kelly. And I was like, I'm out in the car like, yes, thank you, Jesus, get a body scrub. Because I am working 80 hours a week trying to keep my head above water, showing up for rallies and blah, blah, blah. And so we need the kind of community where we are caring for each other like that, where we're watchful and not just satisfied to say, oh, she shows up for everybody. You know,
She's so great.
No, that is an indictment on who we are together. Because sometimes we do need to pass the baton, but there's no one there. So we need to be watching one another, have each other's back, and ask for the way. Right, you know, but feeding each other and making sure that we are loved. God almighty, I'm a black woman in Seattle who couldn't find a date if it was at my front door. If I was loved well, I would be president by now. So if you want to know what you can do, work on your own life so that we can break down the myths, especially for those of you who are of European descent. Break down the myths because you don't need them. Whiteness atrophies you.
Yes.
If you want to build your muscularity, say, I don't need the system that says that I'm better than somebody. Work on you so then we can truly be partners, because unless that system is broken down, we are not equitable. And so we can't truly be in a relationship. And so those are the kinds of things that I am just offering for us to be together so that we can maybe be 90 or something. Rather than sneak out of here at 55, right? Because we done worked ourselves to the bone.
And I just want to say, if you have not heard, right, first of all, these words are balm to the spirit on Sunday, but also your voice, your singing voice.
Yes.
Right? So for folks who want to hear more of this, please visit her amazing church.
Or check me on Facebook. It's all
It's,
there.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think
I
you have a
didn't-
question.
I have a few comments. Just listening to talking about prisons and jails for the youth, and going back and talking about slavery. Well, slavery has never ended. It just changed. Prison industrial complex is slavery. They have active slave camps all over Colorado. Go to Canyon City, Colorado, there's 13 prisons there. Okay. Our political system is broken. Okay, because as long as we have an electoral college, you might as well just concentrate your efforts on local elections because they elect the president.
That's right.
Okay. This dude lost about 3 million votes. He was elected president before they even counted our votes. So that stuff doesn't matter. You gotta get, like you say, into the community, get into the root of things. White people they gotta take these blinders off. Right now, we've got a Democratic Congress, but have they put up an initiative to get rid of the electoral college?
Come on now.
No, they there for smoke screen, like you say. Oh yeah, we gonna help y'all. They come around election time. White people come around. They want your votes. Okay, we have to go to the root of the thing. This prison slavery's got to stop. They're doing everything to take away our schools. The gentrification,
Right.
like you say, is horrible right now. In Tacoma, they are raising property taxes on people 20%. A 20% jump right now that they're getting ready to implement in Tacoma. So this stuff is going on. It's all over the place. It's right in front of us. We as a people got complacent after the 60s and 70s. We made all this huge progress and everybody started jumping around and dancing and thought it was over. And the white folks were just building their coalition. And right now they're showing you the Constitution means nothing. The justice system means nothing. Okay, and we got to break this down, and we got to break it down at the core.
That's right.
Okay, and that's it, and that's locally where we have to break it down. These folks got to go. I'm sorry, they got to go.
With the raising of taxes, in Washington, they wanna make Washington white again. Any other comments?
With that sweet voice.
I
love
Nothing else to say here.
Well, again, I just want to say, before we say goodbye, I mean, I just want to say, again, acknowledge and recognize all the power that's on this stage. We didn't fly anybody, you know, from out of town or anything. These people are here. They are right here. This power is right here within our community. They are accessible. They are here. You can email them, call them. Well, I mean, maybe not call them. I don't know. But you can certainly get in connection and in contact with these folks. I mean, they continue to prove what my grandmother said, and it's because of her. She's the reason that I named the Emerald. The Emerald, when I used to be down on myself in the South End when I was growing up, she would say that the South End is where emeralds are, Marcus. And emeralds, carat for carat, are worth more than gold. And there are so many emeralds just on the stage here today, here in Skyway, all around. Again, I want to thank my brother Michael for, you know, putting this idea. And again, one more round of applause for our wonderful panel.
Welcome back. Welcome back. The one last thing I want to say, and I hate taking the last word, so I apologize to myself and to my mama. If there's one thing I've noticed about Seattle that I find really troubling is that we tend to, at least here, and I can't speak for the rest of the country or anything, but at least here we tend to celebrate celebrities or make celebrities out of people. And the one thing I want to leave you with tonight is that blackness doesn't stop and start here.
No.
And don't let the jacket fool you. Don't let the sweatshirt fool you. When we walk past people, please don't dismiss folks because of what they look like, dress like, smell like, walk like, their education, whatever. Some of the most important people I've known in my life are people who, the one thing that they're known for is making that best sweet potato pie.
I know that's right.
And making everybody in the community feel home and feel loved.
That's right.
When people came back from the box, from the cage, from prison, whatever you're calling it, that sweet potato pie was the first thing to make them feel that they were home. They were a person. So please, all I ask is when you leave this room tonight and you walk past people, no matter what color they are, especially if they're black, just don't dismiss them. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Woo!